Support for Michigan Public comes from the University of Michigan's Look to Michigan campaign, working towards a stronger, more connected Michigan, championing sustainability, global citizenship, and educational opportunity. More information at looktomichigan.umich.edu.
Squirrels might be the least exotic-seeming animal that you can think of. They're everywhere, from state parks to city centers. 49 out of our 50 states have at least one native squirrel species. Michigan alone has 9. But it was one type of squirrel in particular that piqued listener Jonathan DeCucuk's interest.
My question is, why is it that it seems like Michigan is one of the only states to have a large population of these black-colored squirrels?
Black squirrels. Those little adorable outdoor voids are a pretty common sight around the state.
So tell me about the squirrels that you see around Detroit.
Well, I do see them from time to time, sometimes black squirrels, sometimes brown or gray squirrels from time to time.
I feel like I see a combination, regular brown squirrels and black squirrels also, some with like kind of grayish tails in there mixed in, but I think I see like a variety.
Is that true in Traverse City? Do you have a lot of black squirrels in Traverse City?
We do, tons of them.
But does that mean Michigan is really a black squirrel hotspot? This is On Hand, a podcast that answers all your questions about our unique state. I'm April Baer. Today, an ode to the black squirrel. We'll take a look at just how special this super common backyard rascal really is. And we've got our very own squirrel girl on the case. Producer April Van Buren. Hi, April.
Hi, Bear.
Okay, so what do you have for Jonathan?
So I did a little digging, and it seems like Jonathan is onto something here. But first, I should say that black squirrels are not an entirely separate species, which is what I had always assumed.
Me too.
Most of the black squirrels that you are going to see in Michigan are just a normal color variation in a species called the eastern gray squirrel.
Okay. All right. Glad we got that straightened out. But does Michigan have more black squirrels than other places?
So Michigan is definitely not the only place you can find black eastern gray squirrels, but there is research that suggests it is one of the places in North America with a really large population of them. There's this 2022 report that mapped the distribution of coat color for the eastern gray squirrel across 43 major cities in North America. Do you want to guess where Detroit landed?
Well, obviously, I'm rooting for Detroit to be number 1 on that list.
Well, it was very close. Detroit recorded the second highest density of black squirrels. It was just behind Ottawa, and then Toronto was a close third.
Okay. So Detroit is kind of the hot place to be if you're a black eastern gray squirrel.
Apparently so. But of course, seeing is believing. And also, squirrels are really cute. So I felt like I had to go confirm this data in person. And to help me out, I recruited someone who has some pretty legit squirrel bona fides.
Is it fair to say you're obsessed with squirrels?
Very much so. My license plate is SQURRL, and my personal website is squirreldude.com. But yes, I'm obsessed.
That is Corey Seeman.
I have been a librarian at U of M. For 20 years, I work at the Ross School of Business. In much of that time, but not all of it, been known as the squirrel photographer on campus. That seems to be my official role.
And the University of Michigan squirrels, they are kind of legends in their own right.
I mean, they're just so chunky.
The chunkiest.
The funny thing also is that on campus, the squirrels will come out a little later, like around 10 or 11. And
kind of like a college student schedule.
Exactly, like a college student. The ones on campus are like, yeah, I'm sleeping in.
We met up with Corey in Detroit to see if we could confirm these black squirrel findings for ourselves.
We're at Sunset Point on Belle Isle, which is the southernmost point. We have a beautiful view straight ahead of the Rensen and the city of Detroit and Windsor on the left. And it's really just, it's a pretty spectacular day. So you're looking for trees. That's always a place where you'll find squirrels. And you sort of, sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you just see trees.
And at first, we mostly did just see trees. We walked around for like 20 minutes looking for a black squirrel and had absolutely no luck.
So Belle Isle was a bust?
You know, it was looking that way, and I was starting to feel a little defeated, but then...
There's one.
Oh, I see one.
I don't know where she is off to.
She almost looked like she's going for a dip in the river.
Yeah, could be. You know, as long as you can be quiet and you know, they'll hang out. I don't know, maybe she's drinking water.
Should we go take a look?
Yeah, why not?
We'll be quiet.
You found one!
Not just one, April. Almost every squirrel we saw on Belle Isle that day was a black squirrel. A little bit farther into the island, there's this park near the conservatory and the aquarium, and there's all of these giant oak trees. And everywhere you looked, you could see these fluffy little black tails racing around, grabbing acorns, burying them. They were everywhere.
Sort of.
Oh my gosh, I think I've already counted 10 here.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. I'm not even looking further down. I'm not seeing any grays here, so...
Yeah, I'm only seeing black squirrels here, actually.
We probably saw like 20, 25 squirrels, and there were 2 that I counted that did not have black coats. So yeah, I can confirm that I saw way more black squirrels on Belle Isle than I have ever seen in Ann Arbor.
So we have personally confirmed that there are a ton of black squirrels in Detroit. But do we have any ideas about why Detroit and Michigan more broadly seem to be this black squirrel hotspot?
Well, to answer that question, I've got to introduce you to another guy who is fascinated by squirrels, not as a photography subject, but as a way to study evolution.
We study how cities and the environmental change in cities cause wildlife to evolve in different ways. And so squirrels are a great species for that kind of question.
I can't wait to hear all about it after a short break. Don't get all squirrely now. We'll be right back. Hey friend, April Bear here, and I want to tell you about Points North. It's a podcast that's all about the Great Lakes region. These episodes, they are like movies for your ears. They tell stories such as the one-time Congress designated Lake Champlain in Vermont as the 6th Great Lake.
To add a little lake that's 1/16 the size of the smallest Great Lake is just crazy.
Hear that story and more when you subscribe to Points North. You'll find it any place you listen to podcasts.
You make this audio stream, our website, and podcasts all possible. And right now, new monthly gifts will be doubled through the Resilience for the Future match. Make your gift before the end of the year at michiganpublic.org/donate.
Like you heard before the break, your average Detroiter is probably not going to be that fazed by the sight of a black squirrel. But what makes eastern gray squirrels interesting to researchers is that the frequency of black coat color can vary so widely across the squirrel's range.
If you are in the southeastern United States, there's virtually no black squirrels. And in fact, the gray squirrel got its name from that southern part of the distribution, I believe South Carolina. If you move north, you find more and more black squirrels. So if you get into the southern Great Lakes region and you get into Ontario, you'll see the prevalence of black squirrels will increase to 20, 30, 40% or more.
That is Brad Cosentino.
I'm a professor of biology at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, and I study how wildlife evolve and change in response to our changing environment.
Brad is also one of the lead researchers for Squirrel Mapper. It's a project that uses citizen science data collection to look at the human impact on squirrel evolution, and specifically when it comes to coat color.
Our goal is more sort of fundamental in biology. We're really interested in understanding how wildlife evolve, and we're interested in understanding how they evolve in response to the ways that we change their environments. Cities, for example, are one of the most dramatic sort of like focal points of environmental change in our landscapes. And so we study how cities and the environmental change in cities cause wildlife to evolve in different ways. And so squirrels are a great species for that kind of question because, well, they're super common in cities. People know squirrels. They're active during the day. They're highly visible. And they come in these different coat color morphs that has a genetic basis, which is good for studying evolutionary processes that kind of cause how they change over time.
Okay, we have a very important question for you, Brad, from one of our listeners now. We're gonna hear it together. This is from Jonathan DeKukuk.
My question is, why is it that it seems like Michigan is one of the only states to have a large population of these black-colored squirrels?
So, is that true? I mean, I'm actually a Buckeye, and I'd always heard that the only place you could find black squirrels in Ohio was in Kent. Is it true that there are more black squirrels in Michigan than in other places, that they just proliferate more here?
So it really kind of depends on where you're talking about. But yeah, I think Jonathan's right that in Michigan, they are definitely common. They're more common than in some other states like Illinois or Indiana. For the eastern gray squirrels, that species, I'd say the hot spot is around the Great Lakes region and into kind of southern Ontario, and more so on the eastern part of that Great Lakes region. So if you move into Wisconsin and northern Wisconsin, they're not as common, but they used to be more abundant. So for example, I live in upstate New York, and we've done some historical investigations where we've pulled out records of early European settlers. They made all sorts of records of the types of animals and plants that they saw. And they happened to make a lot of records of squirrels. And those records show that in upstate New York, that almost 100% of the squirrels were the black morph, and they've declined. So they're not as common here as they once were, and that's happened in some other places too, like in Wisconsin. So it kind of helps us explain a little bit of the variation that we see from place to place. They're still pretty common in Michigan. They used to be common in New York and Wisconsin, but not so much anymore.
So, I mean, I guess this is a $64,000 question, but why? Why is it that black squirrels seem to be more populous in Michigan and have been on the decline in other places?
Yeah, a couple answers to that. One, there's some evidence to suggest that black squirrels, they thermoregulate. They deal with the cold a little bit more effectively than the gray morph. That could be in part because of their black coat color. They absorb more sunlight and can stay warmer in cold conditions. And there's some studies that show, actually in a related species, fox squirrels, that also has a black variety. If you look at how fast black versus the more typical gray morph heats up on cloudy days, the black morph heats up faster. And so if you think about like where's cloud cover, it's super cloudy in the Great Lakes, right? And so that limited solar radiation combined with it being kind of cool in the Great Lakes region may be together kind of really powerful for understanding why the black squirrels potentially evolved in that region and why they're somewhat common in that area.
So that's the long-term picture. What happens when the timeline starts to collide with human changes in the environment?
When European settlers came through, they cleared the landscape of trees, right, which squirrels require, right? They're all tree squirrels. They evolved in those forests, and they hunted squirrels. Squirrel hunting is still common to this day. And some of the studies that we've done show that the black morph is much more visible to people in forests and in cities alike. And so they were probably overhunted to some extent more than the gray morph and declined in part for that reason. And what's curious and interesting today is, although they've declined in some of those rural forests, probably because of hunting and predators, they remain common in some cities, potentially because cities, well, for one thing, hunting is usually not allowed in cities. So the cities kind of function as almost like a refuge where black squirrels can persist and kind of escape that hunting and predation pressure.
Some of those advantages that you mentioned for black squirrels, are any of those particularly helpful in an urban environment?
So the one thing that we've found that is advantageous for black squirrels in an urban environment is their visibility to people who are out driving around. As you and your listeners probably know well, squirrels are often killed by cars, and it's one of the most common ways that they're killed in cities. And we did a study where we conducted surveys along a big driving route, about 90 miles in Syracuse, New York, and we recorded all of the road-killed squirrels, and we recorded their coat color, and we found that in central Syracuse, the black morph was underrepresented by about 30% in terms of the road-killed squirrels. We think part of that is because they're visible to people, and even an extra second or two of visibility out on a road may be the difference between life and death, giving those drivers a second to slow down and avoid hitting these animals.
Why might the population vary so much even within one region? I almost feel like sometimes there are variants from neighborhood to neighborhood.
No doubt about it. And it's one of the things that really we find or found kind of mind-boggling. When we see some types of phenotypic traits, some traits like coat color that are more common in cities, we tend to think about what are the benefits, right? So maybe the squirrels are more visible to people and they're not dying as much. But the curious thing is black squirrels, even though they get that benefit, they are not abundant in every city. So if you go from town to town, from Kalamazoo to Grand Rapids to Detroit, you'll definitely find variation in the frequency of black squirrels. We find it in upstate New York. I live in Rochester, New York, and there's hardly any black squirrels. And down the road in Syracuse, New York, about 50% of the squirrels are black. We think a lot of that is a little bit of luck in terms of how they got there. So for a long time, people have been introducing squirrels to cities. In fact, it's safe to assume that all squirrel populations were founded by people introducing them into cities.
Wait, you're
black
kidding.
Squirrels were kind of sought after.
Wait, do you mean on purpose? Like keeping them as pets?
Yeah. There's a really nice historical account of this by Professor Etienne Benson. So he looked into the history of squirrel introductions, and at the time when a lot of cities were developing and we started to create a lot of parks, people started introducing squirrels to help kind of beautify those landscapes, right? To add an element of nature. And sometimes those were black squirrels. Sometimes they were gray squirrels. And that might have been a little bit of sort of the random variation you find from city to city. And the most famous case I should mention is in Washington, D.C. So Teddy Roosevelt actually struck a trade deal with Canada and had black squirrels imported to Washington, D.C. They were introduced to the National Zoo. And since then, they've expanded. So they've become 35% of the population in Washington, D.C. There were never any black squirrels before that introduction.
All I want to do now is go to the National Archive and find the treaty wherein X number of black squirrels shall be sent to these United States. What do you think it is about black squirrels, Brad, that really captures people's attention? I mean, they're distinctive, but why do you think they've captured people's imagination to such an extent?
It's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer. I mean, I could speak from experience. I grew up in Chicago where nearly all the squirrels in my backyard were gray, and then visited Rock Island, Illinois. I went to college at Augustana College in Rock Island, and they had black squirrels in Rock Island. And it was just like a phenomenon. Like, oh my God, squirrels occur in this different color. I would never realize that. And it's such a remarkable difference. They do look so different, and they stand out. And I think it gets people kind of just wondering, why is that? How did they get here?
Brad Cosentino is a professor of biology at Hobart and Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. Brad, thank you so much for sharing the lore of the black squirrel.
Happy to do it anytime.
Thanks again to Jonathan DeKukuk for sending us down this black squirrel rabbit hole. And thanks to Belle Isle visitors Jerry Wade, Gabrielle Riley, and Kenny Stebner for talking to a complete stranger about squirrels. Additional thanks to Corey Seeman for all the squirrel finding tips. And if you want to see some of the cute squirrels from Belle Isle, we've got tons of pictures from Corey up at our website. Do you have a burning question about Michigan that you need someone to answer? We are your podcast. Send us questions about the state's flora, fauna, maybe even its frankfurters. Like, what exactly qualifies a restaurant as a Coney Island? Send the questions by filling out the form on the on-hand landing page at Michigan Public. Or just send us an email. The address is onhand@michiganpublic.org. You can find a link in today's podcast notes as well. Super easy. Today's episode of On Hand was produced by April Van Buren. Other producers on Stateside are Mike Blank, Ronia Cabansag, Michelle Jokish-Polo, and our senior producer, Mercedes Mejia. Stateside's executive producer is Laura Weber-Davis. I'm April Baer, back in your feeds next week. See ya.